Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome to the DEX Show's show within a show within a show. It is one of those special episodes of Reality Bytes where various members of the wonderful Reality Bytes team get to interview a wonderful colleague and Nexthinker. We've got Sean, Tim, and Oriana here with us, and we are going to be talking to the fantastic Guillaume Charles. He's Product Management Director for Diagnostics here at Nexthink. Guillaume, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Tom.
And fantastic. And you're one of a series of kind of more technical, product-based guests, and we've really loved having you all on. So we're really excited to talk to you today. But I wonder if you could just start by telling us a little bit about yourself, and first of all, your road to Nexthink and how you came to join us here a few years ago, as I understand it.
Yeah, definitely. So I joined 6 years ago as an individual contributor, product manager. As you can imagine, the company was quite different then. It was much smaller. The product was completely on-prem. Engineering and product teams were very small. So I worked on lots of different features for the V6 products. Then I was the product manager for the first product that we built on the cloud, which was and still is application experience. And now I'm a product director, managing 5 product managers. I'm based in Lausanne. I'm originally from France, where I worked in a few other companies as product manager before. And so that's me now.
Quite a successful 6 years you've had here, Guillaume. You have to give us all some tips for success. We could do with them here on Reality Bytes. So, give us a snapshot of what your day-to-day responsibilities look like at the moment, then, and the kind of projects you're managing right now.
Yeah. So as I said, I'm managing a team of 5 very talented product managers. So this in itself is already taking a lot of my time. And basically, my role is really to work on breaking silos, making sure that the different products that I oversee and that those product managers are managing, work well together, that we build a common vision, making sure that we solve the right problem for our customers, that we build the right thing. So there's a lot of alignment, lots of talking with, internally between ourselves, but also with people from the fields, with our salespeople, with our technical services, and of course with our customers. And I'm also trying to take time to evangelize our product and our vision.
A fellow evangelist. I love it. And I'm really glad you're here, Guillaume. It's a lot of fun to have techies on, and to have a techie that's also a Nexthinker, I think is pretty cool. Talk a little bit about how a new software product at Nexthink comes about. It's obviously it starts by developing something that the market needs, but how do our product development teams get those insights into the needs of the IT teams? How do you know what's needed and what will have enough value for people to actually buy?
So it's quite complex. It's really the core of the role of product management. To be honest, it's more an art than a science, and there are many different channels. So of course, we're talking to customers as much as possible. That's very important. We're trying to even visit them on site when we can. But we also talk to people from the field, so to the sales reps, to the CSMs, the solution consultants, professional services, and so on and so forth, because those people are working daily with customers, and they're in a very good position to know the various challenges that our customers are facing and the problems that they have. We also have telemetry about the products that are already released, so we can know which features are used a lot, which ones are not. So it gives us some quantitative data. We have a portal for customers to post their ideas, which is very useful for us, and they can also vote for other ideas. We have a research team in the product organization. By the way, Oriana is part of this team, and they are super helpful also to help us, do some large research at scale, better understand some of the specific problems that our customers have. And finally, we are spending a lot of time looking at things like analysts, market trends, what the competition is doing, how new technologies can enable to solve some of the problems that might have been difficult to solve before. So of course, these days we are talking a lot about generative AI, as you can imagine, which opens a lot of possibilities.
That's interesting. What are you? I'm just envisioning a list of things, right? The feedback gets you to a place where you can start to list out and prioritize. What are some of the long-standing or running challenges that are faced by IT? How do those influence your list and what you focus on? How do you take that list of inputs and prioritize? And what are some of the key things that they're struggling with today?
So there's definitely lots of things which have changed in the last few years. As you can imagine, since the pandemic, the rise of hybrid working, applications becoming SaaS, the adoption of tools like VPNs and also zero trust network access. So all those things change the way IT works. And now they face new challenges. So more and more things are out of their control. They used to own a lot, the infrastructure, the networks. A lot of those things were on them. They had access to it. They could go to a server and reboot it if needed. Now it's not the case anymore. So there's really an increasing complexity. And even if it's not in their hand, it's still very difficult for them, because when something stops working, the blame game goes on, and it's very difficult to know if it's something on the vendor side, on their side, on even on the internet, on the Wi-Fi connectivity of the person working from home, for instance. So imagine an issue as common and as simple as someone using Salesforce or SAP, and suddenly it gets slow, or they're having an error, they cannot load a page. The issue can be anywhere, on the user's device, on Chrome, on the internet, on the Wi-Fi. Those applications can also be heavily customized. So it could be, customization done by the organization, which goes wrong, or it could be the application itself on the vendor side. It could even be the data centers where the application is hosted, like AWS or Azure. So it's a lot of things, lots of challenges for IT. And they have to make sense of all of this. They have lots of tools, but they might say things which are contradictory. They don't have the vision from the end user, from the consumption, like Nexthink is providing. So we have to take into account all those challenges, and based on all the the inputs that we discussed at a few minutes ago, and also of course the strategy of the company, of Nexthink, and the vision where we want to go. That's how we will prioritize our efforts and build our vision.
I know you and I have talked a lot about sort of how so many of these things, like you said, are very superficially simple, but under the hood, they're super complex. And at Nexthink, we talk so much about see, diagnose, fix. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about how that looks from an individual standpoint, right? If somebody's using our platform, what does that look like in practice to try and untangle this massive amount of complexity?
Yeah, definitely. So 3 simple words, see, diagnose, fix, but for each of them, we could spend hours discussing about them. So I'll try to transform those hours in a few minutes. As you can imagine, they all depend on each other. So the first step is see. We often hear customers saying that when they get Nexthink, it's like, having the lights on, switching the lights on, and they start seeing things that they could have never imagined. So to be able to see, we need to collect the right data. So which means data from the device, device performance. I would say the classic stuff, the stuff we've been collecting from day one, like CPU, memory, GPU, and so on and so forth. But now, as we said also before, more and more things are moving, towards the web, towards SaaS applications, business applications. Also, collaboration tools have become extremely important since the pandemic and the rise of hybrid work. So we need also to collect data to have visibility on this. So, for instance, to be able to know what happens when people use web applications, those important business applications like the Salesforce, the SharePoint, the SAPs. Is it slow? Is it performing well? So we need to get this visibility. That was probably less important maybe 5 or 10 years ago. And same for the collaboration tools, how's the call quality? So that's the data we need to collect. Now we need to be able to visualize this data in some way. So we need to be able to trigger alerts, relevant alerts. We need to have dashboards, data visualization. So all this is like the part to be able to see. Then there is Diagnose, which is another piece of work. There's a lot of data. Probably IT teams and user computing teams already had a lot of data even before they start using Nexthink, because they had other tools, APMs, NPMs, you name it. And the goal is not just to throw data at them and hope that they will figure something out. So we need to be able to give them insights, recommendation, and to help them diagnose. So we need to explain why an alert was triggered. We need to be able to help them find the root cause. And we won't always be able to find the root cause, that's for sure, because very often the root cause is not even something that we can detect. If it's an issue with the application backend, it's not something Nexthink can detect, and it's not something that the IT team can detect or fix. But we can help them. We can exclude other causes. We can say it's not on the device, or it's not on the network. So it's probably on the application. And we can avoid the blame game. And that's something we hear a lot. This mean time to innocence is super important. Being able to say, it's not me. And be able to go to the vendor and confidently say, there is something wrong on your side, please fix it. Now, diagnostics, you can do this, device by device. This is very important for the help desk. We have tools like Amplify or the device view for this. But where we put more and more focus is also to diagnose at scale, because that's super important. It's much more, as you can imagine, it's much more impactful when you can find an issue affecting 10,000 devices and be able to diagnose it, than to be able to go through all these devices one by one. Of course, usually after a few devices, you start to see patterns, but still it's a tedious manual process. So that's where we put most of our efforts. And for this, we have something which is really important and differentiates us from others, is that we have access to a huge data set, because our technology covers millions of endpoints. And therefore, we can get insights that would be otherwise impossible to get. For instance, we can see if a specific version of a binary combined with a specific version of an operating system is behaving poorly, is causing high CPU or more crashes than the average of other versions and OS versions. And that's something very powerful, because first, we can find insights that we would not be able to find just looking at one specific customer data. But it means also we can even inform customers when they're just starting to deploy a new version. We can tell them, hey, be careful, this version is bad. Or even before they start deploying the version. And then that's how you become really proactive. And that's really because we have access to this huge data set. And because, of course, we are leveraging new technologies, powerful technologies to analyze this data set. And with this approach, organizations can start, fixing issues at scale and hold vendors accountable. And that's something that we hear more and more, which is becoming super important, because, as we said already, more and more things are now out of the control of IT, and therefore they need to be able to talk to the vendors and to hold them accountable. So that's the diagnose. And to finish with the fix, I'll be a bit shorter. So at Nexthink, we were the pioneers with Nexthink Act, so capability to execute scripts on the endpoint to remediate. I'm proud to say that today, a few years after we launched Act, we have billions of remediations executed across all our customers every month. So you can imagine the amount of time and tickets that is saved thanks to all those automations. And there is more to come. So stay tuned, attend our Experience Everywhere event, because you will see what is the next level in terms of fixing things. So that's the diagnose and fixing. I hope it was not too long, but there's so much to say about this.
And you would know, I feel like you have probably the most sort of comprehensive view of a lot of this. You're sort of, I think of you as our encyclopedia of DEX in a lot of ways, because like you were saying, you talk to so many people all the time about this. Um, but I'm also curious about sort of the rest of DEX space, right? You're talking a little bit about what makes us unique, but I'm curious if this sort of see, diagnose, fix philosophy is adopted by other organizations. Do our peers and competitors generally take this approach? Do they take a different approach?
Well, I think everyone is trying to see, diagnose, and fix, because in the end, that's very important. It's a huge part of the value proposition of a DEX tool, and it really allows cost saving and to improve the experience of employees around the world. Now, the approach taken to achieve this can be different for each organization, each vendor. And as of today, most of our, if I talk about the competitors, for instance, they are not using the same approach for various reasons. For instance, they don't have access to the same amount of data that we have. Therefore, their approach is still, I would say, to collect a lot of data, as many data points as possible with very high granularity, and give this to end user computing teams, hoping that they will have some experts, very strong experts. That L3 support engineers, sometimes even some organizations have L4 support engineers, so they are really the top experts in terms of device troubleshooting. And those people need to make sense of those data. So of course, it's very powerful. I imagine you troubleshoot one device in real time. We're talking about sometimes, granularity of a few seconds. You have a lot of data at your disposal. But as you can imagine, it's not really scalable neither. So it's very difficult to troubleshoot at scale, to see the type of trends that Nexthink can see with all the data that we have access to. And it requires really deep knowledge about hardware, network, and so on and so forth. Not so many people have this level of knowledge. And definitely, it becomes more and more difficult to find people who have this level of knowledge, because just the complexity of the ecosystem is increasing every year with new technologies, new tools. So I think we've chosen the right approach at Nexthink. Of course, I'm a bit biased probably, but when I look outside, I think other tools are not there yet. Maybe they will get there at some point, but for now they're more on this, let's get all the data possible and see what happens.
Hi, Guillaume. I think so. You sort of answered this question already in the previous one, but so if you have to repeat a few things, that's okay. But I was wondering if you could maybe just expound upon a couple examples of what cannot be done by another vendor who purports to doing the same approach as Nexthink. Like, what do they typically face, the problems they encounter?
Yeah, so maybe what I could give is a few examples that I've heard of recently with some of our customers. Some success stories, and based on this technology, this approach that we have at Nexthink, and that other tools would not have been able to basically to catch. For instance, we have a customer who started deploying a new agent for data loss prevention, and suddenly they realized very quickly that it was this phase deployment, so not deploying, of course, on all devices at once. So each time they were deploying a new ring, people started complaining that their device, was becoming slower, the battery life was shorter, and so on and so forth. So I think they didn't really need even Nexthink to realize that it was linked to the deployment of the agent, because it was obvious. But where Nexthink helped is, in a matter of minutes, they could go to our binary profiling and see that it was a specific version of this DLP agent, which was very bad and causing high CPU and impacting the devices. And they could see that there was another version that has just been released by the vendor, which was much more stable. And then simply they could switch to this version and solve the issue. So that's one example. Another one is we had another customer who has a call center, and they were using a specific application to do the calls. And it had been a few weeks that when the employees were having the calls, everything was getting slow, so the call quality was bad. And you can imagine it's a call center, so they were in touch with customers. So it was really having an impact on the overall organization, on the business. and they could not figure out what was happening. It was like nobody knew. And then with Nexthink, we saw once again, with this cross-customer data, we could see very quickly that there was once again a specific version of this tool which was causing a high CPU during the calls. And the high CPU very often, is impacting the user experience if things become slow and so on and so forth. And I can tell you it was impacting tens of thousands of employees in this call center. So it was huge. When they discovered this, they were like, they knew something was wrong, but they could not assess the impact. And especially they could not find the root cause. So this helped a lot. The last one is another customer. So they have a security agent. And with Nexthink, they could see very quickly that on some devices, this agent was consuming constantly 2 gigs of RAM, 2 gigs of memory. So it was not like this one was not impacting thousands of devices, it was a few, but still, when you deploy a security agent, the last thing you want is the agent to impact the device and to take 2 gigs of memory. And here we could see not only that it was the case for this organization, but with Nexthink and the cross-customer data, we could see easily that the distribution was the same for all customers. So, if you look at the average memory consumption, it's okay, but you look at the distribution, you see that there's always a long tail of devices which are suffering from this. And for all organizations having this security agent on this specific version. So once again, it was very useful. In these 3 scenarios, the 3 different organizations opened a ticket, discussed with the vendor, and the vendor acknowledged the issue. And each time what they told us when we discussed with them is that the vendors take them much more seriously now when they come up with facts, with Nexthink, with data, and also even more when they say that other organizations are impacted and they can prove that in fact it's not only them, but it's impacting hundreds of other organizations across the globe. And that's the type of things that only Nexthink can find.
Excellent. Thanks for those very clear use cases. You've hinted at this previously. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about it, but I'm curious of any of the implications that might occur for businesses who do have a similar Nexthink approach of see, diagnose, fix, that type of detailed, thorough approach. Do you think there are any implications that come with that? Like, for example, I know you mentioned L3 support. They might, for example, I'm imagining, find that some of their work has become redundant because the technology is able to kind of do the heavy lifting for them. Are there any other cases, or even if you want to speak a little bit more about L3 or even L4, how that might impact them?
Well, the first implication, hopefully, is that we will improve the experience of employees around the world, and we will help IT, do a better job also, and improve the experience of IT teams. And my vision, and maybe my hope, I could call it, is that we are not going to replace L1, L2, or L3 teams, but we are going to change the way they work so that what they do can be more impactful and more meaningful. Because it's the same with L1 and L2, like Nexthink allows to automate a lot and reduce the mean time to repair. So in the end, there's probably a lot of the work that today L1 and L2 teams are doing, which thanks to Nexthink can disappear. And same for L3 with what we've just discussed. But once again, I think what it will allow those people is not to replace them, is to make their job different and more meaningful. And here what I mean is I think that those people could have a role which becomes more of an advisory role than just, fixing stuff. And why I'm saying this is because, with Nexthink and the data that we provide, and, as we said, we're going more and more in this direction, we'll provide more and more of this data. Imagine that those people, they will have access to all this cross-customer data about, they will be able to say which device models work the best in which circumstances, which applications are the best for this or that use case, which headsets are the best when you have a Zoom call versus a Teams call. And imagine how powerful this is, because those people in the end, even if they have fewer incidents to fix, they will be able to really fine-tune, improve the experience by becoming advisors and fine-tuning and saying, you you're a sales rep, you're using this type of applications, you're having calls all day long, you should have this type of device and this headset and use this application, on this Chrome version or Edge or whatever. And I think this is really powerful. All this also by keeping into account the cost. And so, it's really, it comes to this use case of personas that everyone is dreaming about, which everyone is saying they do, but in fact, nobody really does it. So personalized IT and being able to say, for this person, for this use case, this is the best device, this is the best equipment, the best headset, the best application, the best configuration that you can have to do your job. So I hope that's really where we're going in the future.
Some absolutely fantastic descriptions there, Guillaume. And thanks to Oriana for handing me on a plate what I think is a perfect title of this episode, the Encyclopedia of DEX, I think, and very, very well earned indeed. Before we say goodbye, we are asking all of our guests at the moment to talk a little bit about what they enjoy most about their role as Nexthinkers, what they appreciate most about the culture of Nexthink and what they do. And I'm very interested in your case to hear what you've got to say about it, Guillaume.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to say once again, but I think for me, one of the most of the best thing working at Nexthink is working with talented people. So that's really cool. Every day I wake up and I know I'm going to interact with, people who have high skills, also who are fun, and it's super great to work with people like this and who are gonna, teach me things. But I also like making an impact. We really see how we help IT teams and, we improve the digital experience of millions of employees around the world. And because we really get things done, we release every 5 weeks, we really see all these new features, all these new things that we're allowed to do, and we get this feedback. We have this feedback loop working very well. We see how this works and how it's helping. And I think we are not afraid of challenges at Nexthink. I think everyone would agree. So a few years ago, we said, we are going to redo the whole product from scratch and move to a SaaS product and, from on-prem to SaaS. And we've done it. Now it's a done deal, and the new product is so great. So it's really cool to work in this type of environment where we are not afraid of, doing big bets, working on big things and making them happen. And there's a lot of challenges, which is also a cool part of the job, because otherwise it would be boring. And if I talk about my role specifically, I like also interacting with various stakeholders. So from the most technical people to customers and, legal, sales, and so on and so forth. And that's also really cool. And the last thing, which of course is super important, is to have fun. And I think at Nexthink we have fun. People are nice. We know also how to celebrate, and super important.
Very, very well put, Guillaume. Thank you so much for coming on the DEX show, coming on Reality Bytes, I should say. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.